People do not like change. You get used to some things that when you discover there's been a shift and you had no say in it, well, that's quite hard. You feel weird, you feel uncomfortable, and almost like you have to start again. Deep down, we are creatures of habit. This is why when you've seen someone use a certain move as a finisher for 67,567 years, and then all of a sudden they want to get a new one over, it's quite difficult. What is this confangled new maneuver, and who is this guy for trying to get me to care about it? I was more than happy with
the tombstone.
And now it's dead. Preposterous. Probably better to just accept it, but whatever. I'm Simon from WhatCulture. Remember to hit that subscribe button. And this is 10 WWE Superstars who gambled on a brand new finisher. Number 10, John Cena. Cena got away with this as he wasn't really back long enough for it to be a proper thing, but teasing that he did have a new big move that he was going to unleash did get people interested. Then when it turned out to be the Lightning Fist, there was an air of disappointment. More comedy than serious, John literally just started to twonk people in the face. It was hard to buy as you see around about 45,567 strikes a match, but that was the point. This was more of a joke instead of groundbreaking. This got underlined further when Chris Jericho did a better job with his Judas elbow, which fell into the same category, and given that Cena is pretty much gone these days, it doesn't really matter. It's also smart. Why smash yourself around when there's no need anymore? It only takes a conversation with Hulk Hogan's back about the leg drop to figure that one out. If only he had just decided to hook somebody in the nose. Who knows if we'll ever see John's big new move again. He's making waves on the big screen, and more power to him. Number 9, Dolph Ziggler. I'm not even sure if I know what Dolph Ziggler's finish is these days. It changes like the wind, and besides, he never wins anyway, so it doesn't count as a finisher. In 2011 though, things were different, and amazingly, Dolph attempted to get a sleeper over as the most devastating weapon in his arsenal. Contrasting it to his crazy bumping style, it was a case of using the past to shape the future and utilizing a submission move as almost a wink and a nod to those who came before. The problem was no main star agreed to lose to it because they thought it looked stupid, meaning the only wrestlers that did were mid-card fodder, and that wasn't going to serve Dolph's plan. He tried in vain, but it was soon clear it was a waste of time. It was ditched, and back to that zigzag we went. Number 8, The Big Show. For most of his career, The Big Show relied on the chokeslam to win matches because of course he did. A staple of any giant, it was easy to do, and it looks awesome when your opponent gets some serious height. If you want to look dominant, these are the boxes you seek to tick. Then he fought a boxer in 2008, and all of a sudden he was using the power of the bunch. Brought in for his WrestleMania 24 match against Floyd Mayweather so that Show could act like he was capable of knocking the champ out, it came into effect in March of that year when Chris Jericho sold it like his jaw had exploded. It wasn't just for laughs though. Big Show even destroyed The Undertaker with his new blow, which raised the eyebrow of many fans. We weren't mucking around. He's never really gone back to the chokeslam either, instead deciding to stick with this hammer which has served him well enough. Let's be honest, if someone who is 7 feet tall did punch you in the face, you'd likely fall over. Number 7, Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's always funny to think that when Steve Austin walked into the WWE after a damn good ECW stint, he was given the ringmaster gimmick. He was also put with Ted DiBiase, and it was that which shaped his whole character. He was the $1 million champion, part of a $1 million corporation, and used the $1 million dream as his finisher. How could he do anything else? Even in 1996, that approach was seen as old hat, and it's telling that 6 months after his debut, and that DiBiase suddenly left, that Austin began to use the stunner. That tied into the Rattlesnake's King of the Ring win, and as we know, we were then off to the races. I'm not 100% sure that we'd have gotten the same boom if Steve had just carried on choking people out. The immediacy of dropping someone's jaw onto his shoulder became a visuals fans were desperate to see week in, week out, and from there, he became one of the most successful professional wrestlers in history. The end. Number 6, Chris Jericho. It's not surprising at all that Chris Jericho would be on this list because who is better at smelling the winds of change and listening to them? The answer is no one. Constantly reinventing himself and staying ahead of the curve, this was true for his moveset as well, which is what we saw in 2007. Returning to the WWE after a hiatus, Jericho marched back into action with his new codebreaker finish that could be hit out of nowhere, and even used that as a catalyst to switch up his whole persona. The old Y2J was gone, and we had visual cues that represented that. You know it worked too, as it remains one of his calling cards, as do the Walls of Jericho and Lion Salt. Talking about taking the right steps forward without just burying your past. There's an argument right now that Chris has the best character in all of wrestling, and it may very well be because of the decisions he made in the process. Smart man. Now here's an advert from TrueCar. Number 5, Dean Ambrose. When Jon Moxley was reborn in New Japan, he made one very quick decision, which was his finish. Ensuring that opponent Juice Robinson kicked out of his old Dirty Deeds move, Moxley debuted a far more devastating version when he hooked his rival up into the air and dropped him on his head. It was almost like the shackles of WWE were gone and he could do whatever he wanted. There is more proof to this too, because we had been in this position before. If you load up the WWE Network and seek out early Ambrose matches, you will see that the original version was more of a reverse DDT that got changed when the powers that be said it was too dangerous. He was asked to tone it down. Bringing in the Death Rider or Paradigm Shift was something he had to do though, given that he was going through a rebirth of sorts. This was Moxley doing things his own way, which included how he beat his enemies. Also, it does look better. I don't think we can dispute it. Number 4, Seth Rollins. 2016 was a tough year for Seth Rollins after he was told he couldn't curb stomp people's heads into the floor anymore. When read like that, you can see why this happened. Management was terrified kids would copy this in the playground, so it was stopped in its tracks. It was a shame as it helped the Rollins character no end, and once again had that magic that it could be hit from nothing. You never saw it coming. The first replacement was the pedigree, given that he was feuding with Triple H. It made sense on paper, but it was so synonymous with the game that no one accepted it from somebody else, and all it did was remind you that Triple H was probably sniffing around somewhere. Attempt 2 was a knee to the face, but once more, it didn't connect, and no, that's not a pun. For one, it didn't have a name for ages, and when it was finally dubbed the Ripcord Knee, it was met with apathy. That doesn't sound very cool. Eventually, we just went back to the stomp because everybody realized that it had something to it, and that's now been run into the ground because everybody and their dog has kicked out of it. I think I kicked out of it in my sleep last night. Means you can't really call it a finish because it rarely finishes anyone. Number 3, Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is smart. Clearly at some point deciding he was going to change his finish, he waited until the biggest point of his career to date to debut it. Now we're talking. Coming at SummerSlam 2013 when he was facing John Cena for the WWE title, Bryan ran at his foe and kneed him right in the face before pinning him for the win. It was easy to get over because once again it was throwing your knee into somebody's face, and the fact that it not only beat Cena but won him the belt meant it was now easy to believe it was over from that second. This kind of impact move was one of the things he didn't have as well, so bringing it in was just completing the package. He was going to have to fight the Authority after this, so having a quick maneuver to dispose of them was needed, and it's not like he left the Yes Lock behind entirely. Months later he was winning gold again using that very submission, and Bryan was simply ensuring he had no holes in his moveset. Probably does have some holes in those jumpers he wears though. Number 2, The Undertaker. It was always going to be important to evolve the Undertaker character over the years to ensure it didn't run out of steam, and it's the reason Mark Calloway has been as successful as he had. He knew how and when to do this. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know I wasn't particularly enamored with his switch to the American Badass, but I get to fans who were getting into wrestling at that time that he did come across as some cool motorbike guy. What did not was when he introduced the Taker Care of Business submission. He did this to try and get over as a heel in 2001, which was always going to be a struggle because everybody loves the dead man. When you are taking out beloved faces such as RVD, The Rock, and even Jim Ross by choking them out, however, you've probably got a better chance of achieving this. So fair play to the Phenom for committing to this in the way that he did. That one didn't fly, but even today he has made a move like this work. As well as the Tombstone, it's not uncommon to see Taker choke people out with Hell's Gate, a move that's directly tied into his love of MMA. Much like his character, Undertaker has always tried to bring something new to his presentation. Number 1, Mankind. In 1998, Mick Foley risked his life to become a bigger star than he ever had been. And somehow he topped this simply by putting a sock on his hand and ramming it down other people's throat. That is wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Foley himself has often said he wished he thought of this sooner, but really without these death-defying stunts, he may not have built up the sympathy in the way that he did. By the time he did introduce Mr. Socko, we loved Mick so much, he could have gone and done anything he wanted. Based on the mandible claw, which he had been using for years, it soon became true that it wasn't the move fans were looking forward to. It was Foley sticking his hands in his pants and pulling out clothing that was meant to be worn on his feet. Before long, it was clear the more he moved away from the original idea of Mankind, the more success he was going to get. Boy howdy, did this prove it. You know what really freaks people out? Wrestlers changing their looks. Do you Remember when Chris Jericho came out wearing pants instead of tights and it was the talk of the town? All he really did was cut his trousers, but it sent people nuts. How could he do this to us, and why for some reason did he now look naked, even though so many other wrestlers wore such attire? Just one of those weird things that happens. Your eyes go crazy. Even I got this when I ditched my singlet for shorts, and I'm just some bald idiot on the internet. I don't deserve anything. As my mum often tells me, that is a joke. My mother is lovely. Anyway, it means this can be a huge risk, but it can also result in major rewards. Even the smallest shift can get people interested in you again, something that's imperative when fans are beginning to tire of you. That's why taking some time off can equally be as beneficial. Never let yourself be overexposed. I'm Simon from WhatCulture. Please do hit that subscribe button. This is 10 WWE Superstars who gambled on a new look. Number 10, Shawn Michaels. You know what the Heartbreak Kid did to get more attention? He switched from tight pants to baggy ones. Yep, I am not joking. It all started in 2002 when he won his final World Championship in the Elimination Chamber. There he had some bizarre brown trousers that were also quite baggy, as he had a wardrobe snafu before the event. And to try and calm the reaction down, he switched back to tight so fans could finally sleep again at night. There was another issue a few years later though. The sheer impact of pro wrestling started to weigh on Michaels' shoulders, or more specifically his knees, and it was glaringly obvious that he was wearing giant knee braces given his outfit was so snug on his body. He knew he had to hide these, so he went back to the flares, but as these were in an odd shade of brown, no one really cared this time around. They sparkled like some of his best attires had, and that is all people cared about. We just wanted to be wowed by his fancy pants. Throw in that some of his best work happened as he wore these, and all was right with the world. His gamble paid off, and that was that. It would never return again. Number 9, Taz. Taz had such a badass outfit in ECW that it was impossible to think of him wearing anything else. He was the human suplex machine, and he was booked so well that you just believed he was an actual fighter. It was some kind of delicious irony where he laughed in the face of what pro wrestling was while wearing a singlet, which is traditional pro wrestling garb. It was beautifully thought out. When he came to WWE, however, he looked more like a gimmick than anything else, as he was wearing a boiler suit. Apparently just walking off a Slipknot video. It got even stranger because he was put into a feud with Jerry Lawler where Raven helped him out. No one saw that coming. New metal was running wild. The main reason this didn't work though is because WWE didn't seem to want to make it work. Taz marched into the company and choked out Kurt Angle, who was undefeated at the time, and it seemed like the train was well and truly behind him. But then, as said, he was in a feud with the King, who many at this stage just saw as a commentator. That doesn't add up, and a few years later, Taz was an announcer himself. I mean, he did a great job, but I think many would say he still had a little bit left in him as an active wrestler. Number 8, Dolph Ziggler. It's fair to say that when you first see the Dolph Ziggler we're all used to, he looks a bit like Shawn Michaels or Mr. Perfect. That could be intentional in the sense he certainly mimicked his career after those guys, because he has always been a super bumping machine, the SBM. Regardless what you think, however, it was a million times better than what he did in 2011 when he decided to shake things up. Described as the new and improved Ziggles by then valet Vicky Guerrero, Dolph cut his hair, dyed it brown, and honestly looked like everybody else on the roster. Even though this was years ago, he somehow had a resemblance to Chad Gable, and a more timely one would have been Cody Rhodes. It's like he morphed into a creator wrestler in WWE 2K. Thankfully, he realized pretty quick this wasn't a good idea, and as soon as he'd grown his hair back out, he went blonde again, and we could all calm down. This was Dolph Ziggler for better or worse, although yes, it was definitely for the better. There was another change along the way when he kinda became a hair metal enthusiast that looked like he'd fallen out of the 80s. I guess he's kinda still there now, but as long as he doesn't go back to the brown guy, we're all okay. Number 7, Chris Jericho. We've mentioned this already, and really there are loads you could pick given that Jericho is the master of reinvention. He's had so many looks over the years, including turning up in New Japan, seeming like he was Robert Smith from The Cure, as why the hell not? It was in 2008 when he arguably went through his biggest transformation as he dropped anything familiar. Channeling legendary wrestler Nick Bockwinkel, gone were the flashy waistcoats and, as said, long tights, and he even changed how he talked. Now he was infuriatingly slow with his speech and started using long words that many fans probably had to Google to find out what they meant. You could have argued this was Jericho's brother. Above all else, he refused to engage the audience and pitied them instead. He even told WWE not to sell any merchandise with his face or likeness on it because he wanted to be the ultimate heel. There's no question this paid off, and many will still tell you this was the finest 12-month period Chris ever had. It also started to make many of us realize that Jericho was far more of a performer than maybe we'd realized, and that was after a decade of kicking ass anyway. Number 6, Mankind. Like others in this list, Mick Foley just went nuts in 1998 and changed his in-character image. Twice that year, he had been manipulated by Vince McMahon in order to screw over Stone Cold Steve Austin, and to back this up, Mankind began wearing a smart shirt and tie, even though he was still wearing his terrifying mask. Many fans were quick to quip this looked ridiculous, but that was the point. He didn't look the part because it wasn't his. Foley was being controlled by the powers that be. Mick did an amazing job with this because despite being part of the bad guys, he also managed to get sympathy from the crowd. He had miles more depth than anybody else on the roster, and it was also the catalyst for turning him fully babyface. So yeah, he looked bad on purpose, and I'm not sure who else could have dealt with that. He was everything wrong with a corporate world champion and kind of even less suited to that role than Austin, which was also part of the storyline. Whereas the rattlesnake couldn't have the wool pulled over his eyes though, Mankind was ripe for the picking. I swear Mick Foley could have been an actor had he wanted to be. He did this kind of stuff all the damn time, and it never felt contrived or ham-fisted. Number 5, Bobby Roode, or Robert Roode as he was for all of a day. Even though Vince McMahon had Roode under contract for a couple of years, the boss clearly didn't realize that the gimmick took some inspiration from Rick Rude. When he saw that they had the same last name, that was that. It was time for a change. Isn't that right, Owen Hart? So in 2019, Robert Roode was born, and he even chose, or was forced, to grow a Rick Rude-like mustache. He teamed with Dolph Ziggler for a while, which was fitting as they were treated quite similar to one another, but the major problem was even with this shift, WWE still didn't do anything major with him. He wasn't even allowed to grind his hips or say the audience looked like pigs. Admittedly, that would have been too much, but we were kind of meant to think because he had changed his name and grown some facial hair that he was a new beast. Doesn't work like that. The worst part is Twitter will still yell at you for calling him Bobby, even though the Robert version has been left in the past. You can't win, I tell you, and really, who even knows these days? I got no clue. Number 4, Triple H. Triple H cutting off his long hair was like opening the door in the morning and finding out that you were now on Mars. It was just so unexpected and the game looked utterly different. It was all down to his transition from wrestler to behind-the-scenes guru, and after WWE had teased this when he kinda retired at SummerSlam 2012, Trips took this as far as he could by getting rid of the mane that we'd been familiar with since the mid-90s. A long ass time. Now, it was kind of funny at first because he looked like an executive from 1987, but as a man who also cut off long hair to no hair, that just happens sometimes. You go for the easiest option before figuring out what actually works. But yes, Triple H didn't look too dissimilar to Patrick Bateman. It got better than this soon after, and now he looks weird when you see the old version, and that's why life is crazy. Things can change on a dime, and I bet if he did start to grow it back, we would all hate it. Also, how the hell has it been 8 years since he did this? We have to slow down life, people. It is moving too fast. Number 3, The Undertaker. Another entry where you can kind of take your pick. Some fans liked what The Undertaker did so much at WrestleMania 28, they still question why he didn't keep it. For you see, during the build for that match, the dead man didn't reveal his face once. He had a dark hood over his head the entire time, and that was part of the fun. Because when he did throw it back, which was accompanied by thunder and lightning because of course it was, we were greeted to a badass new look or a very threatening mohawk. As well as looking awesome, it also held back the fact that, like many of us, Taker was losing his hair a little bit. He also did it at exactly the right time to give his character a new lease of life, and it just made it seem like he was gonna ruin someone. Why, it just worked, and it was a good retort to anyone who thought the Phenom wouldn't be the same without long hair. Taker also worked it into the storyline, pleasing every veteran on the planet, and while his longer haired look will always be satisfying, there was more legs here. It's a shame we didn't let it play out. Number 2, Bray Wyatt. Yet somebody else who I'm sure has plenty more up their sleeves, Bray Wyatt just gets it. Husky Harris to his new character was one thing, but after a long absence from WWE TV, his return was something else. Not only did he now have a Mr. Rogers type persona that was equal parts lovable and terrifying, but the other side to this was the Fiend, a serial killer-esque madman with a genuinely fantastic mask to boot. It completely eradicated any damage that had been done to Wyatt thanks to bad feuds and booking. While that red light isn't everybody's favourite, we still have to take a step back and admire everything that Bray has done. You just know it's all from his own brain too. His gimmick is even responsible for changing other people as well, given that as of me saying this, Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan and The Miz have all gone through transformations of their own thanks to The Fiend. Really hope WWE allows this to shine for the long term because there's so much potential here, and it has that one aspect few do in World Wrestling Entertainment today. He is flippin' cool. Number 1, the British Bulldog. As I say every time I bring him up, the British Bulldog will always be a hero of mine. To see someone from the UK make it so far at a time where it rarely happened was truly something special, and he did this all on merit. So many people forget nowadays that Davey Boy Smith could go in the ring, and go he did. Something that didn't serve him too well though was the Attitude Era. It wasn't massively his fault as he just wasn't allowed to evolve with the times, but the big shift he was given was that he now wore jeans. Okay. I still don't get why this happened. It's not like it helped him stand out, and the many injuries that he was suffering with at this time just came together and pushed him down the pecking order. I mean, he looked a bit like he'd just stumbled from the ECW arena or from some roof he was building. The weirdest part was at Unforgiven 1999. The Bulldog came out in Union Jack tights and looked like a different and better wrestler instantly. Why we didn't just stick with this, I'll never know, but hey, who really cares? He's still a legend, he always will be, and WWE, please put him in the Hall of Fame. Thanks. Entrance music may be the most important thing in the world when it comes to being a wrestling superstar. That is a massive over-exaggeration. Like, if you have the best entrance music ever, but you get in the ring and you absolutely suck, no one's gonna care. But it is part of the first impression fans are gonna make of you. They're gonna hear your tune, and then if you come out and you're like a badass, they may go, I'm gonna keep an eye on this hot tamale. So that is what we're gonna focus on today. We are gonna go through some wrestlers who decided to take a gamble with new entrance music, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it absolutely sucked. And as we are talking about the land of music, make sure you check out WhatCulture Music, where you can get your fix of everything when it comes to music. You can get lists, you can get opinion, you can get reviews. You need it in your life. But for now, my name is Simon Miller. This is WhatCulture Wrestling, and this is 10 wrestlers who gambled on brand new entrance music. Roll it. Number 10, John Cena. Usually the reason a wrestler will change their entrance music is because their character has become stale and they're looking for things to get them jiving again. And what better way to get jiving than having a brand new theme? But when it comes to John Cena, it was kind of all just part of his evolution or his rise to the top. Because when he was first on the scene, being the Doctor of Thugonomics, he also had the Doctor of Thugonomics theme tune, and everybody absolutely loved it. There was just something about it that made you pop. It sounded cool, and it tied into that character perfectly. In fact, WWE smashed that out of the park. Just as he was about to become the man in WWE on an episode of SmackDown in March 2005, however, all of a sudden he came out to the music that would now become synonymous with him, My Time Is Now, or Time Is Now. You know it as the song that you hear, and you start going, John Cena sucks, John Cena sucks. I mean, yeah, that's been going on for 15 years. It really does work though, and if you have been watching wrestling since that time, as soon as you hear those opening beats of the music, something inside of you goes, I should start to care, because regardless what you think about John Cena in today's day and age, he is a massive star, and everything he does carries a lot of weight. Also, just to take a little shot at him, because I know people like that, it was kind of only the, second character transformation he ever took in WWE. The first, dropping the Doctor of Thugonomics thing. The second was his music. Then he figured it all out. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing over and over and over again. But you can't knock it. You can't insult it, because it absolutely worked. His time was indeed now. I regret saying that. Number 9, the Dudley Boys. Sticking with 2005, this was also the same time that the Dudley Boys decided, we are a bit bored of our music, why don't they change it up? And despite it being 3 years past its peak, they decided to have some new metal play them to the ring. That was all thanks to Power Man 5000, and what I really do not understand is why they opted to do this. You remember their original thing that just went dun 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 dun. It worked so well. There was just something magical about it that made you want to stand and cheer. But this one was the one that went get up, stomp, blah, 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 blah. I don't know the lyrics. It didn't even tie into what the Dudley Boys were. And also, again, new metal had already died out by that point. nobody wanted to hear it anymore, and here it is being thrown right into your face. The real issue is that it didn't make you care and it didn't make you react. So it was neither really, really good or really, really bad. And there have been some wrestlers who have had terrible entrance music, but somehow that's gone full circle and you fall in love with it. But genuinely, go on YouTube right now or use whatever you want to use, listen to the Dudley Boyz original theme, and then listen to this new one and try and figure out if it would make you enjoy this team more. The answer is no, and soon after this they left the company anyway. Number 8, Randy Orton. Randy Orton has actually gone through a few entrance themes over the years, and if you didn't know, one of his original ones was My Fire Burns, which of course eventually would go to CM Punk, and that was actually a good choice because it fit CM Punk like a glove, and while Randy Orton was all like snow and conniving, you can't have this super metal riff accompanying you when you walk into the ring. After that, he went to Burn My Light, which he did have for a good few years, and that was the one that just shouted, hey, at you every now and then. It was like, hey, nothing I can say, hey, nothing, hey, and you're like, would everybody just stop shouting at me? Nowadays, of course, he is accompanied by voices that has incredible lines such as, I hear voices in my head, they talk to me, they understand, which is basically telling you that Randy Orton is a crazy person. And while it's kind of generic rock at its most generic, it works for the Viper, it really, really does, and he must have had this for a damn long time. But at no point have I ever thought, Randy, you better change this up. It's become long in the tooth, so fair play to him for figuring it out. I think it's because there's a sinister vibe to it, and that is the way the character of Randy Orton has always carried themselves. And that is exactly what you're going for when you're coming up with your music. It should match your personality so that if a fan has never watched wrestling before, they know what you're all about. Randy Orton smashed it. Number 7, Kurt Angle. Everybody knows this one, and it was an ingenious choice by WWE. And if you want to know, the title of it is Medal, which was also used by the Patriot, if you remember him, from around about 1996. The reason it worked so well, though, is that it backed up all of Kurt's different guises. So when he was the good guy, even though we thought he was the bad guy, it kind of summed up the majesty he had in his own head. Then when he became the serious worker guy, it became almost like an Olympic theme that accompanied to the ring. And when he was finally a super over babyface, it was patriotic, and it was just like, oh, Kurt Angle, he's the best. So why, when he shifted to ECW, did WWE decided to take this theme and kind of push it all together? And I mean that literally. I think to try and stop the you suck, dun dun dun, you suck chants, they just thought, well, if we get rid of that rhythm by genuinely just pushing it all together, we can circumvent this. It is just a terrible idea all round. If you don't know what I'm talking about, again, go and listen to it. Listen to the original and then listen to that one, and you'll think you gave a project to your 13-year-old sister who's never used an editing suite before, and she just made this mess. Thank goodness Kurt Angle eventually just went, if you want to tell me I suck, you can tell me I suck. Sometimes when you've got something that works, don't muck around with it, damn it. Number 6, The Rock. A little secret about The Rock, or at least how I feel about his entrance themes. I totally believe he's only ever had one good one. I know, and that's when he was just coming out of the Nation, and he had that went bow, but the bow, bow, and had lyrics like The Rock says, The Rock, The Rock, The Rock. It just fit him perfectly. With all that said, when he did come back to the company in 2003 as Hollywood Rock, WWE knew they had a problem. The fans were in love with Dwayne Johnson, and his charisma and presence were just bleeding onto the screen, so you didn't really want to have a piece of music that made them want to cheer. You remember the one that he had before he went away, just went, if you smile, and it was inclined to make the crowd sing along with the chant. So what we did here is that we tied into all his actor stuff, and we had this really drawn out light show and picture show, and you had that whisper by The Rock instead, and it just undermined the fact that he was not trying to get cheers, and really he'd come back from the land of celebrities thinking he was the best thing since sliced bread and Brad Pitt. So you were meant to realize that The Rock now thought that he was better than all of us, and that was replicated in his music. The riff had slowed down and it just felt more grandiose. And that is another nod, or tip of the cap, I should say, to whoever was in charge of that. I'm going to guess it was Jim Johnston, who, by the way, should be in the Hall of Fame, and it's ridiculous that he's not. The man just had a way with all of this. Number 5, X-Pac. All that ever comes to my head when I think about X-Pac's music is that one he had where it started by some guy shouting, X-Pac, and another guy just replied, X-Pac. Strange. And then from nowhere, he was given a song written by Uncle Kracker. And if you like Uncle Kracker, that's okay, that's good. I know literally nothing about him, but it just didn't work. Again, this random voice would kick things off by going, hey, yo, you dealing with the X Factor? And then like some country song started playing, and out came X-Pac who looked like he'd never listened to a country song in his life. And it may be his favorite genre of music, but none of this added up. It was like a jigsaw puzzle, but you'd just taken pieces from different ones and thrown them into the package. It was almost like it wanted you to get up and start waving your hands in the air. I still can't fathom it to this day. It is just, well, it's bad. Like, it's a really, not only is it a bad piece of music, but as a wrestler's entrance theme that is meant to light people up and get those butts off of seats, it's actually peculiar. Sometimes it keeps me up at night. It really, really does. I try and process it. I try and think who greenlit this. Surely Sean Waltman didn't sign off on this, but he's the poor sap that had to put up with it. This could be one of the worst of all time. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Number 4, Chris Jericho. Break the Walls Down, which was Chris Jericho's original and best WWE theme, never needed to be changed. The moment he debuted in 1999, using that, it was just a phenomenal piece of work and something you could listen to in the gym and get all pumped because it was just so good. And then all of a sudden, for a few weeks in 2002, he was given a revamped version by Saliva, I suppose because WWE was just so desperate to sell any kind of record they could. They loved music back then. They thought, oh, well, we can give Chris Jericho a new theme, and that's another way to justify it. It did not work, which I think is summed up by the fact that, yes, it barely lasted 21 days. It's called King of My World if you are interested in listening to it, and you will not believe the opening riff, which sounds like every single opening riff you have ever heard. It even sounds a bit like the Raw opening riff, and he was on Raw. Oh, it's just baffling. It also never goes anywhere. Verse, chorus, pre-chorus, ending. It's like this the entire time, and it doesn't peak at any stage, which you obviously need a wrestler's theme entrance to do because you want him to get on the ropes and you want everything to explode. I would still say that X-Pac was worse than this, but in terms of a decision when Chris Jericho never needed brand new entrance music, well, it ranks up there. Number 3, The Undertaker. I've said it before and I'll say it again. No, I did not like Biker Taker. I understand that he needed to change up his character in order to stay relevant, but I was born and bred on the dead man, and I just couldn't accept that he had come back as a real guy. I was meant to believe he wasn't alive, and now I'm just being told, oh, he's alive again. This was doubly hard for me because when he first did do this, he obviously was coming out to Limp Bizkit's Rollin'. Now, in hindsight, everybody laughs at Fred Durst and everybody laughs at Limp Bizkit like, what a rubbish band, but that was not the case. They were at the peak of their powers in 1999 and 2000 and were a massive band that was selling at arenas all over the world. So to actually have this association did do something for the phenom. However, we should go through some of the lyrics, and excuse me, they're down there, so just ignore my eyes for a second. But now I know y'all be loving this shib right here. Obviously, they've used the swear word. B-O-O-G-E-R red is right here. That's booger red, whatever. People in the house, don't put them hands in the air, because I don't care, and you won't care. Never did this. I don't know, man, you tell me. There are some good things here, and there are some bad things. There are some pros and some cons, and when this was gone, he went to that, you done it now, you gone and made a big mistake music, which was even more dull. Just give me the bong, man, or the dong. Can't say Undertaker's dong, because everyone goes, tee-hee-hee, whatever, the big bell. Give me the big bell, give me the funeral march, although actually, controversially, I think the Undertaker's best music is from the Attitude Era, the one that's on Volume 3, WWE, the music Volume 3, with that guitar that goes, wow, that's his best one. Get mad at me in the comments. Number 2, Triple H. People are still having this argument today, which is incredible because it's been going on for 21 years. 21 years. But basically, in 1999, Triple H couldn't figure out which theme song he'd rather use. He had My Time Is Now, which again, people are still behind, or he had Motorhead's The Game, which for my money is one of the best entrance musics of all time. And yeah, the first one I mentioned, sung by Chris Warren, who also did D-Generation X's theme, is actually okay. The issue is the lyrics, where he would just scream, my time is now, my time, and it just took away from everything. When you shift over to what Lemmy and Motorhead did though, my word, I mean, not only do you have one of the best metal acts in the history of the world doing your own song, but even that first chord, that power chord that they hit, just makes the hairs on your arms stand up, and you know that something big is about to happen. I mean, it's Motorhead, for goodness sake. Metallica, Megadeth, all these bands. If you can get them to do your entrance music, you should move heaven and earth to do that. More importantly, it also tied into this change that Triple H was about to go through, because gone was all the ball gags and the dorkiness, and now he was a serious wrestler who was gonna go after the World Championship. And you knew that to be true because his theme was so damn good. Number 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Austin first experimented with a new theme tune in the year 2000, where he thought, hey, I'm still a pretty good babyface, but I could add something new to my act So he called up Disturbed and said, would you like to scream and shout over this music? And they went, of course we would, wrestling's massive right now, and that's what we've got. And look, it's okay, it's all right. The problem, as always, is the original was so amazing, it couldn't even come close. This would rear its head again a year or so later when he decided he wanted to be a bad guy and he joined the Alliance. And we still had the glass breaking and you still had the basic structure, but instead of the dun 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 dun, now WWE had decided it should go and you're just like, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you wanted to change it, just change it completely, especially because we all knew that eventually Stone Cold Steve Austin would be going back to being a good guy. And when that happened, when the original theme returned, we would have popped our socks off. There was also the issue that I would sit on the edge of my sofa like, am I having some kind of issue in my brain? Because it kind of sounds the same, but it also sounds utterly different. Maybe my television is broken, I better send it back. And again, this was 2001. It was not easy to send TVs back in 2001. They were CRTs, they had massive backs. But maybe it does tie into everything with Steve Austin's heel run. It was a little bit mistimed, it was ill-advised, and ultimately, when we look back, we shouldn't have done it. He was the best of all baby faces, and we should have kept him there. And also, should have kept his music the same, which very interestingly, Jim Johnston has said in the public was based on Rage Against the Machine. So now you know. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know about any other wrestlers' theme tunes that you like, that you didn't like, ones that changed and made you want to smash your head into the wall. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to What Culture Wrestling, then head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE, watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture. I'm pretty sure my favorite themes of all time would be Stone Cold Steve Austin's, The Undertaker of that Volume 3, Kane's, and Triple H's, but I'm going to regret this now because I will have forgotten one and it will make me really sad. Sting's really good, The Four Horsemen is really good. Let's just stop this, but let me know yours.
Hello there everybody, it's Adam Cleary and welcome to 10 wrestlers who gambled on a new catchphrase. Before I start though, just going to address the elephant with giraffe legs in the room here, and no, I'm sorry, What Culture's resident catchphrase king Adam Wilborn is not included. Why? Well, because he's not a wrestler, he's just Alan Partridge. If that feels like some impenetrable What Culture office patter, then, well, that's a good start. Because a catchphrase should be something that's easy to understand, reflective of character, and in general, an easy shortcut to generate a crowd reaction. Bret Hart's best there is, best there was, best there ever will be was an all-timer because it was strong, clean, and alliterative. Suck It worked because it was just really fun to say, and Edge and Christians for the benefit of those with flash photography was just inspired because it was the year 2000. They were all great and eternal, but most of the time catchphrases grow stale, and when they do, it's up to the person responsible for spouting them to come up with something new and engaging to revitalize fan support. And while there are countless examples of this happening throughout the history of wrestling, some remained bigger rolls of the dice than others. My name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 wrestlers who gambled on a brand new catchphrase. Number 10, Mr. Ass. Mr. Ass's gimmick was that he had a fabulous, well-manicured ass and he loved the asses of other people. Mr. Ass, and God Jesus Christ, can you imagine calling The Rock Mr. Eyebrow, sure loved asses. So it was rather strange then that for a few weeks in the gross Vince Russo WWF era, he unveiled a new catchphrase. 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink, he'd say, as a call and response. Which was weird because, I mean, he was Mr. Ass, so 3 in the stink, surely. He didn't call himself Mr. Puss. Was it successful? It was not successful. Number 9, Ryback. Ah yes, your pal and mine Ryback had mixed success in the catchphrase field. As Skip Sheffield, he tried to get yip 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 what it do over, which made him sound as dumb as a box of rocks. But as Ryback, a Terminator-inspired character that was dumb in the good fun kind of way, Ryback convinced several thousand people every single night to shout, "Feed me more." It was good and it was over, and he had a real presence about him, which he briefly headlined WWE pay-per-views with. Finish! It got over too, and all was well until they turned him heel after losing to Mark Henry in a frankly nonsensical result. As a heel, Ryback took to saying, "Ryback rules," perhaps seeking to impress Vince with alliteration. But sadly, his goose was cooked, and this Billy Madison-inspired bit had largely been forgotten. Was it successful? Well, Ryback is now a men's rights activist, so no. Number 8, Daniel Bryan. Bryan, Daniel, Danny, Bryans, yes chants were a gamble all of themselves. Not because they weren't good, but because he just up and did it one day on an ask forgiveness later basis? He just didn't care. He wanted to amuse himself under the expectation that the fans would find it entertaining too, and my god they did. Inspired by Diego Sanchez's UFC psych-up routine, Bryan, as this chicken cash-in world heavyweight champion, believed himself to be a goddamn golden god. This got him over as a babyface because it was such a farcical riot, but WWE, unbelievably, didn't see it at first. Thus, Bryan, with the most blunt and hilarious of tweaks, started just saying no when the fans played along. It was all so gloriously dumb, but crucially, that good kind of dumb. I mean, it's literally just a man changing his catchphrase from yes to no. It is so obvious, but it was so well executed. Was it successful? Well, I mean, fans still chant no to this day, so yes, ironically. Number 7, The Miz. Now, this is an opinion of mine which does feel slightly controversial, but I've always thought The Miz is a very good heel precisely because he isn't very good. Don't get me wrong, he's incredibly charismatic and he grafts his absolute bollocks off to follow road agent direction, but watch his attempt to sell for Tucker's Luther's press just a few weeks ago. I mean, the guy's been a professional wrestler for years and years, but he no-sold a routine move, got lost for a moment, and then just left the ring. When Lacey Evans does it, the internet goes mad, but this particular effort from The Miz was probably worse than any lol look at the state of this gif you've seen of her. But Miz is still a very good heel, and really is such an insufferable thing to say to somebody. That plus his cheese grated at the gooch cadence and smug bastard facial expression has got it over massively. Whatever happens in the ring, good or bad, he can brush it off with just one word. Was it successful? Yes, incredibly so. Number 6, The Rock. Look at this man. Just look at this man. He is a veritable catchphrase generator. Literally every single time the mainstream or financial media bothers to cover WWE, the words smack and or down are mandatory. If you smell what The Rock is cooking began as a sexual innuendo and mutated into a monster of crowd interaction. It doesn't matter what your name is, coined incredibly by Tiger Ali Singh, was a murder weapon. Know your role and shut your mouth was funny and authoritative. Jabroni was so hilarious it became for a time the new word for jobber, and Poontang Pie was also good because it effectively conveyed the idea that The Rock was just cool and had lots of sex. The only exception to all of this was go and get a glass of shut up juice. That was a bit lame because it just sounded like something that somebody who wanted to be The Rock would say rather than The Rock himself. Like, I don't know, Buff Bagwell, for example. Was it successful? Well, you could live to be a million and you will never read a single Vince McMahon tells Bin Salman to go get some shut up juice as he pulls Crown Jewel live feed in a mainstream headline, so I guess not. Number 5, The Rock. Again. Yes, as we have established, The Rock is wonderful, but then again, the Beatles wrote Wild Honey Pie, David Lynch directed Dune, and Simon Miller once bet me NXT wouldn't win Survivor Series under penalty of dressing like a clown. We all make mistakes. And The Rock made a mistake with the whole boots to asses deal because it was both basic and nonsensical. It was perhaps intended as a rallying cry to get fans on his side ahead of his match against John Cena at WrestleMania but it wasn't particularly necessary. It's difficult to even bury scathingly because it's just so weirdly generic. Boots to asses. Was it successful? Yes, actually, in a weird way, because a record number of wrestling fans ordered a pay-per-view just to see John Cena get knocked off his perch. Number 4, Steve Austin. Steve Austin based his stone cold persona on real-life serial killer Richard Iceman Kuklinski and began experimenting, as wrestlers do, with a catchphrase. It wasn't Austin 316 says I just whooped your ass. He sold warehouses full of t-shirts with that one. It wasn't and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so and kids across the world began punctuating their own sentences with that one. Nor was it give me a hell yeah, a monster phrase that routinely broke the Richter scale. His first catchphrase did none of these things because it was as lame as it was contrived. The interviewer would have to say, man, that's cold for the setup, before Austin would retort, nah, that's Stone Cold, because, get it, that's his nickname. Was it successful? No, he realized very quickly it was shit. Number 3, the 1-2-3 Kid. Yeah, let's call a spade here, perhaps the most underrated pro wrestler of all time, this guy, but his attitude era catchphrase was the pits. As a slender, big bumping performer far better at getting his own ass smoked, he wasn't really equipped with the necessary intimidation factor for this one. It was just an overload of very forced cool. I smoke weed and I beat people up and I f*** the hottest chicks too, brah. It's like something a 14-year-old reads on a dorm room poster and tries to retort himself. It's also just the 1990s equivalent of that smirk emoji that the most dry-balled amongst you continually send to all the women who wish you'd stop bothering them. Was it successful? I mean, yeah, absolutely, because we all had goatee beards and frosted tips and smoked weed and listened to Korn and wore oversized jeans. It got over because we're all awful. Number 2, Steve Blackman. Everybody required a catchphrase in the Attitude Era. They couldn't print t-shirts fast enough and they couldn't get folk off TV fast enough because so many acts were over under the car crash framework. The catchphrase, though, was as mandatory as blood, tits, and Kane, but Steve Blackman's was awful. Look at him, he just wasn't really a catchphrase guy. He was more of a seems capable of killing you with his bare hands and air quotes boring kind of guy, and it all just didn't really fit. In a bid to get over, Blackman took to saying, "It's party time," before pounding some poor prick's dick into the dirt. The punchline, you see, is that it wasn't a party. The bit didn't get over because fans were sort of desensitized to the weapons-heavy action by this point, and also it wasn't very good. Was it successful? Do you know, alright, it actually might be, in retrospect, if Joey Janela does the right thing and books him for spring break this year. Number 1, Steve Austin. Again. Right, here's the thing that most people don't seem to appreciate. Steve Austin, in addition to being a megastar workhorse, is also a surrealist comedian. And way more important than that, he is also the goddamn worst. Because after quite a few amusing bits, I mean, Austin's deadpan was both funny and quite terrifying, the fans not only took to it, but they took it too far. In fact, they somehow contrived to make bad scripted promos even worse by ceaselessly chanting what, with a profound obnoxiousness. This insufferable bullshit has ruined a significant proportion of modern WWE experiences, and everybody who has ever engaged in the practice is guaranteed to be an awful person. They talk in the cinema, there are toenails all over their living room floor, and they definitely use that smirk emoji. Was it successful? Yes, it's probably one of the most successful catchphrases in wrestling history, but then again, nuclear bombs are successful. What?
You've sometimes gotta take a gamble. Life is too short to play it safe, so get off your tush and take a risk, damn it. You can never regret taking a chance. It's the same for wrestlers too, so I'm Simon from WhatCulture. Please hit that subscribe button. And here's 10 wrestlers who gambled on a new character. Number 10, CM Punk the captain. Or the veteran, or as Punk once put it, the flubbing old guy on the team. He did not say flubbing. It is an important aspect of his new character too, because do not forget CM didn't get kicked out of wrestling. He walked away for 7 years when he was arguably in his prime, and admitted when he returned that he had a lot to prove. Needed to show he could keep up with the young crew. It weren't like a treat because he re-earned all his respect as he started to climb his way up the ranks. That was so important too, as this had always been Punk's thing. The top guys have got to work with the young guys, otherwise wrestling doesn't work. If he was going to get into the main event, it would be the same way as everybody else. Punk has this cool grey beard and speaks with an experienced tone you can only have if you've been through it. He has essentially become a Jedi Master. The voice of the voiceless has also gone full nostalgia mode with winks and nods to the stars of yesteryear, and he did all this even though he could have just walked in and done the same old shtick. And that shtick was good. It's not what he was going for though, so he did a 180, and I think we can all agree it was the right call. Number 9, Seth frickin' Rollins, the king of drip. So this one seems to divide people, but I tell ya, I love it. The Messiah character was a little odd, as I suppose it wasn't a direct extension of Rollins, whereas the insane, strange, clothes-wearing drip Seth, I suppose, is. This is no fluke either, as he spoke about wanting some pizzazz to return to wrestling after appearing on Steve Austin podcast, and so far so good. The man looks like a cartoon. His best explanation of it so far was if the Joker was going through a midlife crisis, and this is the kind of nonsense I need in my life. Not like Rollins can't go into the ring and smash it. He does it every time. You could put forward that a more in-depth story into how he transformed into this is missing, and that would be fair. But that aside, this is just entertaining. Like, why is he so mad all the time? Why can't he control his laugh? And where does he get all those wonderful suits? I think all of this got moved into great territory after he teamed with Kevin Owens. It was great. Number 8, Miro the Redeemer. Right, honestly, Miro could have walked into AEW, done the exact same gimmick as before, and I'd been fine with it. The man is a hero. While his initial switch as a gaming dude was a bit out of nowhere, you can actually see the teases if you go back and watch it now, because the Redeemer was always the idea, And you damn right it was. And I still agree going through all that was slightly unnecessary, but it is good to try things. And by the time he was just trying to decapitate people while speaking constantly about murder, things really picked up. Since then, nearly every backstage video has been sublime, and if he's not the AEW World Champion by the end of 2023, then we're doing it wrong. The true genius of the character is that Miro doesn't get the TV time he probably should, and yet still takes his 30 seconds and smashes it out the park. You totally believe he's an absolute warrior, which is quite the switch from when he and Lana were getting a divorce because of Bobby Lashley. Number 7, Edge, the benchmark. Thankfully, Edge has moved on from this now, mostly as it didn't really work. When he was the leader of the Judgment Day for all of 7 seconds, he cut his hair, stood in some blue light, and was all like, yeah, you don't know me. And I have no idea what he was going on about. The idea was that he had done it all in wrestling and therefore was the man, and to me that should have been crafted within a good guy persona. Edge does have the experience and the talent to be the guy sitting at the top of the tree, because the dude is a legend. I mean, he's flipping main event at WrestleMania twice. And I do respect it because Adam Copeland could just be Adam Copeland and no one would have minded. He just wanted to try and reinvent himself, even if it was a little bit hit and miss. Seemed to have worked now, however. He has become all of his gimmicks in one. Why the hell not? Number 6, Steve Austin, the anti-Stone Cold. Well, we all know this one. In 2001, Steve Austin decided he had no more juice as a good guy and had to go heel. It resulted in a lot of people tuning out of WWE, as they just wanted to see Stone Cold kick ass, but hey, I get it. Wrestlers want to be creative and they want to stay ahead of the curve. While it wasn't a success on a wider level, I tell you, I thought it was great. What started off as an unhinged persona with Austin destroying Jim Ross and Lita soon became this bizarre childlike man who wanted hugs and people to be nice to him. He even played terrible guitar. It was such a 180 from what we were used to. Fans were genuinely confused, especially when the Rattlesnake started bullying Kurt Angle. Despite all this, I'm a pleased pup that it did happen because it just cracked me up. I mean, he was the biggest star ever being a super goof. It sounds like Austin regrets this a little nowadays, but screw that. Cowboy hats for life. Number 5, Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump. Scott Steiner ain't dumb. He probably plays up to that a little bit, but he could tell that his legs were slowing down in the ring. What did he do? Upped his character game. Let's not pretend that Scott wasn't a fantastic wrestler, because he really was, but there was only so long he was going to be able to do that. When he split from Brother Rick in 1998 to go fully fledged heel though, you could tell a change was coming. And while at first he dubbed himself White Thunder, thankfully he eventually settled on Big Papa Pump. This persona was just absurd in the best possible way, as he talked about his arms as if they were his kids and came across like a madman. Scotty would also get on a mic and tell us that WCW sucked, and no, nobody said he could do that. And there was definitely a lot of the real man in this, but look, people are still chatting about it today, and there's a reason for it. Number 4, Hangman Adam Page, the anxious millennial cowboy. This one was definitely a gamble. If you go through wrestling history, a babyface showing any weakness was considered a reason to hate them. That's why Mick Foley had to convince Vince McMahon that him walking away from his first Randy Orton confrontation was a good idea. McMahon thought this would be the end of his legacy, because the crowd would think he was a wimp. It's a concept that I don't think is accurate in 2022 at all, and Adam Page proved that. While he was trying to make his way up the AEW ladder, he was anxious, worried, and felt like maybe he wasn't good enough to win the big one. If that's not a window into all our lives, I don't know what is, especially as he got back on the horse, pun intended, to become the world champion. That is just cool. I think in years to come too, we shall look back on this as a moment in time and one that others use as a template for their own character. Vulnerability is the way. Number 3, Becky Lynch, Big Time Bex. Well, everybody went mad about this. When Becky Lynch returned to WWE at SummerSlam 2021, she made it very clear the man was gone, and instead she was going to play the bad guy. Wasn't the most obvious choice given how beloved she was, but once again, let's get creative. This saw Big Time Bex arrives, where as far as I could tell, Lynch just wanted to have as much fun as she possibly could. Wore ridiculous sunglasses, picked outfits that could take an eye out, and would act like such a goof at times I couldn't help but like it. This is wrestling. Seemingly Becky had the time of her life playing it too. This is good things. Number 2, Randy Orton, the pal of a stoner. Who in the flub saw this one coming? Not I. WWE didn't either, as RK Bro was only meant to be a one-night thing, but WWE officials saw the chemistry they had and increased their running time. The real joy was that Randy Orton had kind of been playing the same character for some time, and this not only allowed him to change that, but he started to enjoy himself too. You could see it all over his face, and he spoke about his relationship with Riddle in glowing terms, to the point They became one of the best tag teams in the whole damn company. This is when wrestling is at its best though, because it was real. Riddle and Orton had a bond, they used that to win championships, while also talking about how awesome weed was. Let's not pretend otherwise. It's easily the best babyface version of Randy because there's so much warmth here. Laid back Orton, I suppose we'll call it. It rocks. Number 1, The Undertaker, the American Badass. If you watched any of my videos on this subject, you know I was not a fan of the American Badass. But I was such a supporter of Zombie Undertaker when I was a kid that seeing him be a normal biker man made me sad. This is not what I wanted. When you look back now though, it was a change that needed to happen and probably gave his career the longevity it did. Coming back as a literal badass meant he could fit into the Attitude Era easier as well, and fans loved it. That's quite the testament to Mark Calloway too. Somehow he got the character over twice, but again, he shouldn't have done it. Where's the urn? Where's Paul Bearer? And where are the coffins? 12-year-old Simon there. Bless his cotton socks.